Hey, what is up YouTube? Kolst here. So the next Hearthstone expansion, Murder at Castle Nathria, has been announced, and with it 10 cards have already been revealed, so I want to go over those right now. And as part of that, as seems to be usual, there are two new mechanics as well. There is the Infuse keyword, and there is a new card type, Locations. We're going to talk about those when we get there, but I want to start out by talking about a couple of the legendaries because those seem really interesting. Alright, so the first one we're going to talk about here is the card which is already in the game, and if you log into Hearthstone you will actually get it added to your account. It is Prince Renathal. This is a 3-mana 3/4, your deck size and starting health are 40. If I didn't mention, this is an arena review by the way, and the reason it's very relevant for this one is that this card is not in arena. I'm not sure, it might actually be possible to discover it, I don't know. If it is, it's a 3-mana 3/4, who really cares, right? This would have huge implications, but they just banned it. They're not coding just to make this card a thing. It's not a thing. So with that, we move on to the next one. The other neutral legendary they have announced is Murloc Holmes, also a 3-mana 3/4, but this one with a Murloc tag. This guy has a somewhat unclear battle cry. It is solve 3 clues about your opponent's cards to get copies of them. So there are a lot of details about this that they've revealed through various posts and videos and other kind of tweets and stuff. I'll try to summarize that as well as possible. So basically the way this works is you get a sequence of 3 different clues, and each clue is basically a discover. So you see 3 cards and you have to choose one, in which I haven't been able to figure out if the cards it shows you are totally random or if they're weighted some way in what's likely be in their deck or whatever. But as far as arenas, it doesn't really matter. But first you have to choose which card started in your opponent's starting hand, and then you have to choose which one is in their current hand, and then you have to choose which one is in their deck. And a few other details are, since it is possible to have an empty hand or an empty deck, it is possible to not get the choice. In that case, you just skip it and move on to the next one. And if you get all 3 correctly, or all of the available guesses correct, then you get all of the cards that you guessed correctly. So what makes this very interesting is that, I mean, if you're guessing completely blindly, it's a 1 in 27 to have 3 cards added to your hand most of the time. But an intelligent player should be able to have some information on what these cards are likely to be. As far as constructed, obviously, you're going to know what your opponent probably actually has in their deck, so that's going to make it quite a bit easier. But even in an arena, you'll have clues based off of, well, in their hand, you might have already seen the card played, and just based off of current hand and deck, you might be able to get some kind of information, but also you can just go basically off of card rarity and card power level to just, make an educated best guess, right? So I think this card's actually a bit better than most people would expect, because I'm guessing that a really good intelligent player should be able to get something like 10 to 20% of the time all 3 of the cards here. Unfortunately, the deck one is still going to be mostly it's going to be a bit higher than a 1 in 3, but it's still kind of blind, right? So not super consistent. But the card I want to compare this to is a pretty decent draftable arena card, which is Peasant. This is just like a 1-mana 2/1, which, very inconsistently will have a very good game, but oftentimes it's just a 1-mana 2/1. And maybe it forces your opponent's coin out of them so they can hero power it, right? But that's my comparison here, because I think Peasant might go off a bit more than Murloc Holmes, but the upside of Murloc Holmes is often going to be significantly bigger as well compared to Peasant. So, and even if you do unfortunately miss, you might get some relevant information as well that can help you. I think this card objectively is going to be pretty good. Having said that, it is in the legendary pool, and obviously if you see this up against some kind of broken legendary, you probably should pick the broken legendary. I'm not saying you pick this over Raid Boss Onyxia, but I think this card actually is going to be pretty good and probably better than most people are expecting. Just because it's a 3-mana 3/4 and it has a real chance of actually just straight up winning you a game by itself. And so with that, let's move on to some of the other cards. Let's start with the ones that actually have some of the new keywords. So the first one is Infuse. First one here is Priest of the Deceased. This is a 2-mana 2/3 taunt with the Infuse keyword, gain +2/+2. Now the Infuse keyword is that when you have your own minions die while this is in your hand, you will get the effect that it has. It's kind of similar to Corrupt. If you're around for Corrupt, it just has a different condition. So I think this is a pretty interesting keyword in general, just to say, because, you know, it adds more decision making, just because you might have to choose whether or not you just play this as a 2-mana 2/3 right, or you sit around and wait until it actually upgrades. And also relevant and constructed as well is that it forces you to maybe actually have to play minions. But as far as this card is in Arena, it's a 2-mana 2/3 taunt, which is already pretty good, right? Nothing to write home about, but very good. And has the upside that sometimes you're just going to be able to naturally play as a 2-mana 4/5 taunt. Sometimes you'll just, you know, you'll have another 2-drop or whatever, and this thing will actually be a lot better than another 2-drop, right? So this is definitely good. Again, not like super crazy. It's not going to dominate the arena, so to speak, but because it'll take a while to get 3 Infuse naturally. Most of the time you would expect, unless you happen to play Demon Hunter, have an exact combo with it. But overall, pretty common card. It is a common rarity, so you'll be seeing a lot of these. And with that, we might as well talk about the other Infuse card as well. This is a Rogue Shadow spell, Door of Shadows. A 1-mana, draw a spell, infuse 2, so you need 2 minions to die, add a temporary copy of it to your hand. So I'm assuming, I believe temporary copy just means that it goes away at the end of your turn. I believe that's usually what that means. But anyway, this seems like a very powerful card, because this is like 1-mana draw 2, and not only draw 2 but draw 2 spells. And you know, you don't always get that many spells in Arena, but in Rogue in particular, I mean, you can get things like Reconnaissance, for instance, to get double chance for Gigafit and stuff like that, or double Shark in the Water or something. By the time you trigger the Infuse effect, which you would hope to do, but you wouldn't be able to do if you just top deck it necessarily, but if you're able to do the Infuse effect, you're probably going to also be able to play whatever you get. You play the temporary copy, obviously, so then you'll just have the other one in your hand as well. So overall, this just seems like an extremely powerful card. I bet you're going to be picking this a lot. With that, let's move on to the other keyword, or actually the new card type, which was locations. First one we have here, I believe they've confirmed actually that there will be 10 of these, 1 for each class. This one is Sanguine Depths, the Warrior version. A 1-mana, 3 durability location. And the way these locations work is that they take up a board space. So you can imagine they're kind of like a dormant minion, and they cannot be interacted with. They kind of engage more like a weapon too, because like a weapon they also have durability. And like a weapon, they cannot be interacted with unless, what they did say, and they haven't revealed a card that does this yet, they did say unless there is a card that specifically interacts with locations. So it kind of implies that there will be some of those. But we don't know what those are. And like a weapon, you can use it once per turn, and using it will use up a durability. So this one is deal 1 damage to a minion, gave it +1 attack. So you play this thing, like imagine you just play this on turn 1, and then anytime you want, if your opponent plays a 1 health minion, you can kill it off. Or if you play a minion that you want to enrage, then you can do that. But you can only do it once per turn. And so overall, I mean, you can kind of imagine this is just like a 1-mana 1/3 weapon worst case. Sometimes, I mean, you could have, there are things in the core set like Acolyte Pain to combo with it, right? But you're probably just going to be using this to ping most of the time in Arena realistically. And 1 mana for 3 pings is pretty good. And you know, if you have like a weapon, right, you have to take a lot of damage, and also it takes up your weapon slot. And that's a very significant cost in Warrior. So I think the fact that you can play this and it doesn't have to do that, and by the way, I believe you can also have multiple locations on the board, so you could just have a bunch of these in Arena theoretically, because you're not just limited to 2 in your deck, right? Which would be pretty hilarious. But yeah, overall, I think that will be very good. The fact that you get free pings that cost 0 mana that do not take up your weapon slot, that seems very good to me. So I think this is going to be a very good card in Warrior, probably better than people would expect. Of course, again, not better than, you know, Outrider's Axe or some kind of broken legendary, but you know, just very good. And the other location card that has been revealed is the Shaman one, which is called Muck Pools. It is also 1 mana, 3 durability one. I forget if I mentioned, but they did say that they're not all going to be 1 mana, 3 durability, just the 2 that they announced already happen to be. And this one reads, transform a friendly minion into one that costs 1 more. Critical that it's only a friendly minion, you can't like evolve your opponent's minion to silence it, kind of. But still, I think this will be very good. So basically, if you've played this on turn 1 or whenever, anytime you ever get a value trade ever, you get a 0 mana at that point, evolve, which seems very useful. Even 1 mana evolve could be kind of difficult to actually get, you know, because you have to pay that 1 mana, which requires you to play off curve. And a lot of times you'd only really be evolving or wanting to evolve 1 minion anyway. So this will just get to do that 3 times. Again, this just seems very, very strong. And undoubtedly, I believe they've already shown a little bit of evolve synergy. There's probably going to be more coming as well. So there's going to be ways to use this a lot. So this seems very, very strong as well. If I didn't mention, this is a Shaman card. So let's move on to, I guess, the other Shaman cards while we're here that have been revealed. There have been 2 more already. First one here is Primordial Wave. This is a 3 mana epic nature spell. So because it's epic, you probably won't see it too much in Arena, but 3 mana, transform enemy minions to the ones that cost 1 less and friendly minions into ones that cost 1 more. It's a very long-winded of saying evolve and devolve, but both of them. And it is literally evolve and devolve added together, because it's both of their effects simultaneously, and it's the mana costs of them together. Devolve was 2 mana, evolve is 1 mana. This just does both. But now my prediction on this one is I don't think this one is actually going to be very good, because I think even though it's like 2 cards added together in one, I think this is an example where the card is significantly weaker than the sum of its parts. So why do I say that? First reason is that because one of the primary uses of devolve was actually when your opponent plays, you know, giant taunt like a Murloc Forge Fiend or something, you devolve it and hopefully they don't get another taunt and you just get to go face and kill them. Unfortunately with this, you cannot use it that way because your own minions get transformed, so they're not able to attack. They will have summoning sickness, so you simply cannot use it that way. And similarly, I think it's worse as an evolve as well, because as I already mentioned with the other card, a lot of the limiting factor a lot of the time with evolve is just having to pay that 1 extra mana. And now instead of paying 1 extra mana, you have to pay 3 extra mana. So you're not going to be able to set it up so easily with like a big Battlecry minion, for example. And as well, since you have to have 2 different board states theoretically line up for this, you might want to evolve but not want to devolve, because your opponent might have some minion you don't want to devolve, or you might have some minion that's overstated for its cost that you don't want to evolve. It's theoretically very good if everything lines up perfectly, but just seems like more often than not, things just aren't going to line up quite as well. And you're going to be overpaying for whichever effect, whichever one of the 2 that you actually want. So overall, I feel like you're not going to see it much, and even when you see it, you're just probably not going to want to draft it. It just doesn't seem very good. And with that, let's move on to the last Shaman card, which is a legendary. It is Baroness Vosh. 4 mana, 3/6 Naga, so pretty good stat line. And this is that evolve synergy I mentioned from earlier. If this would transform into a minion, summon that minion instead. So you can imagine if you play this with Muck Pond on turn 1, which was that location card we were talking about, you can immediately play this and you get a 4 mana 3/6 and a random 5-drop instantly. And if they don't kill this, which they might not be able to because it has 6 health on turn 4, then you get to just keep doing it. So honestly, pretty unbelievable as far as, you know, just like the synergy with evolve here as far as Arena. This is absolutely like game-winning levels of synergy here. But now, of course, having said that, if you just don't happen to have the evolve or anything else that you could potentially combo with this, then it really doesn't do much. I mean, it's still a 4 mana 3/6, right? But it's a legendary, so you wouldn't pick it over other legendaries without the synergy, or at least if you're not early in the draft and hoping to get that synergy. But yeah, overall, it's a combo card, but it's a very, very terrifyingly powerful one, potentially. With that, let's move on to the last cards. I do believe there are just 2 left that I haven't covered. The first one here is Suspicious Usher. This is a priest card, 1 mana, 1/3 rare. Battle Cry, discover a legendary minion. If your opponent guesses your choice, they get a copy. So this one's very interesting and a little bit unclear as well if you just read it. So they have confirmed on Twitter that the way this works is that, you know, you can't interact with your opponent on their turn at all in Hearthstone. That's just a general Hearthstone mechanic. So the way this works is that you play it on your turn, you discover it, you do whatever, you end your turn, and then at the start of your opponent's turn, they will get the discover for the exact same 3 choices that you got. And then if they guess it, they get a copy. So what that does mean, if you actually play the minion you discover, then they know what it is, and they just get it. So that makes it, you know, that's a very significant downside for this card. You're pretty much forced. I mean, unless you just win the game with it and you don't care, you just can't play the minion Discover. And a big upside of Discover often, especially a cheap Discover like this, is that you can immediately play whatever you get, right? So I feel like that fact is going to make this card a lot worse than it would otherwise be if it was just like 1 mana Discover Legendary. However, of course, if you play this on turn 1, you can just pick whatever, and then you just hope that your opponent doesn't guess right. So there's going to be a bit of mind games in this, right? Because your opponent is kind of directly incentivized to pick the strongest card, because, you know, if you get a Colossal or Raid Boss Onyxia as one of your options and you pick it and your opponent does not pick it, they instantly lose, right? So they kind of have to pick the strongest card. You can kind of mind game them by knowing that they have to pick it and then just intentionally picking the second best option, and that would make it so you're much more likely to not actually have them win and get the copy themselves. And of course, and sometimes you might just know that you need a certain curve play, and hey, there's a 4 mana 4/5 legendary by chance, so you'll just take that, and your opponent's not gonna know exactly what you're looking for there. So it's pretty good in that respect as well. It's overall gonna be kind of hit or miss, because again, if you get a broken legendary but so do they, it doesn't really help you, but I guess you still got a 1 mana 1/3, right? Something. Overall, because it's a pretty significant risk, your opponent might get a card that they can use better, although you should be able to choose one that you can use at least as well as your opponent, so it probably shouldn't be too bad. But yeah, probably not going to be a super premium card here, but definitely pickable and pretty decent card overall probably. So you can pick it if you want to, but you're not going to want to pick this over like actually premium cards. And with that, let's talk about the last card here, which I did see already struck some fear into the hearts of some constructed players. This is Decimator Olgra. Also a legendary, a 6 mana 3/7 Battle Cry. Gain +1/+1 for each damaged minion, then attack all enemies. So Control Warrior is going to like using this in conjunction with Brand to get double Battle Cry, and then oh my god. But overall, I mean, I guess you have to imagine this is just kind of like the new iteration of Deathwing Mad Espec. Deathwing was a guaranteed 8 mana 12/12 that attacked all other minions, which meant it also attacked your minions, and it also did not attack face. A big part of Olgra in Constructed especially is going to be that it attacks face, because it attacks all enemies and also does not attack your own board. And you can imagine in Arena, right, because we're talking about Arena primarily here, that there's naturally just going to be a few damaged minions most of the times. If you have a few minions on board, they have a few minions on board, you can have a couple trades happen and then set it up for this to be very good a lot of the time. And if you have a bit more mana and you happen to have some kind of a whirlwind effect that you can use in conjunction with this, yeah, you just get like a bunch of stats and kind of a pseudo, not even really a pseudo, kind of a true board clear. Assuming there isn't some poison on the board that this thing will just like jump right into, obviously. But overall, again, Arena, probably a very strong card, but it's in the legendary bucket again, so it is up against other legendaries, so you might not always take it, because I don't think it's going to be, again, at that like super premium legendary tier. But it's a good card, right? You would definitely like to have it in your deck in a lot of warriors. But with that, that is it for this review. Make sure to keep an eye out for more reviews. I believe the reveals start up again tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. So as these kind of reveals come in, I'll be periodically making some more of these videos to review the new cards. And if you enjoyed this stuff, don't forget to smash the like button, smash it, and subscribe if you haven't already. Comment on your favorite part of any of these cards or these reviews or anything, because all comments help the algorithm. But yeah, thanks a lot again for hanging out. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.